All right, family. We live. Sarah Soon Seti membership exclusive. We're in the house. Ancient Egypt and earliest America. We got to give you that word. You feel what I'm saying? Now, again, what we got to understand, number one, that the global platform in the ancient world for civilization was the Nile Valley platform. It preceded all other global structures. You see what I'm saying? Government, global cultural structures. It preceded all of that. So you have to start civilization with the Nile Valley. What do I mean by it? What do we identify with the civilization? First and foremost, let me get my piece of paper. Hold on. I need to put this down. Now, in order to have a civilization, first thing that most people look for is cities. Got to have cities. Okay, that's one of the clear symbols of civilization is cities. You didn't come out of the what they call the primitive state, or where you just in villages, or something that can't even really be identified, by other peoples outside of your village. But a city stands out. It is clearly it is recognized by peoples in all surrounding areas. So the first thing that we identify with civilization is cities. Okay. Also, written language. Okay. You can be grunting and shit and all of that, but there's a difference. In order to have written language, you have to have all of the utensils to write it. You see, you got to have the paper. You see, you have to have the pen, the ink. You see, you got to have the alphabet. You see, you got to have the alphabet. You have to have all that. You see, and that's really clear because science will become so advanced. Science will become so advanced to where you can't just memorize all these goddamn formulas. That just ain't gonna happen. And so when you can record the formula and you can continue to advance. You see, you can continue to advance and you can record the information and always have it available. Okay. Another thing, standing structures, architecture. You see, and we are talking about a significant advancement. Egypt had reached a level of advancement to where the architecture is still here today. That just show you can put some shit out here in the neighborhood right now, and I guarantee you it may last 100 years if niggas don't beat it up, or these Neanderthals don't beat it up. Okay, it is, but even then, it's gonna need some. It's gonna need some help. It's gonna need some help now. You're gonna have to do something to it. Okay, but nevertheless, there's so for certain structures to still be with us, 3, 4, and 5,000 years later, show you a highly advanced civilization, and more advanced than even modern technology. Even more advanced than modern technology. Nigga, put this shit up, that shit'll be gone in less than 100 years. Okay? In less than 100 years. Okay, but that's clear, when we talk about civilization. So These are critical aspects. And then you're talking about government. That's another thing about, so you got to have government. And Egypt was the first government on the planet, period. Matter of fact, the government that Africans had come into government before Egypt. And that's clear. I have to even say pre-Egypt. You're talking about going up into Nubia, because they have identified that the Nubians already had a kingship in Nubia almost up to 800 years before Egypt was even a nation. So they've already documented that by the grave that was left in Kustul, Sudan. Okay, Kustul, Sudan. They found, very similar grave that they found in early Egyptian royalty. They're very similar in style, you see, and so that they know that the Egyptian evolved out of the other, period. Okay, so government. So when you're talking about Egypt is technically the world's first modern civilization. What do I mean by modern civilization? All the characteristics of a nation today. You see all of the departments of government, the Department of Interior, the Department of Commerce, the Department of War, the Department of you got the Interior, you got the State, which is your ambassadors, those, the head of state, which is again the ambassador. All of that was in place first and foremost in ancient Egypt. So Egypt is the first civilization or nation that existed with all the characteristics of nations you see today. Okay, gave them the blueprint of how to run a government. Okay, so that's very necessary. And so they took it where there was no other civilizations on the planet. Okay, that's very clear. It's hard for people to understand. That don't mean they wasn't there. They just didn't exist with the model of civilization you see today. You wouldn't have known they didn't have writing. They didn't have paper. They didn't have these things to record. And so without that, you can't develop on the level of today, because you got formulas for all these different arts and sciences. You can't put that shit in your memory. You got to have it on paper. You got goddamn computers and hard drives and shit. You got to record that. You feel what I'm saying? So, that's very clear that, writing is technically the greatest invention in all the world. You see, because without writing, there's no way that we could have advanced at all. You see, no way that we could have advanced at all without writing and an ability to record. You see, and develop and being able to go back to the formulas, work on the formulas, advance the formulas, advance more formulas. You see, more ideas, record the ideas. You see, advancement in all subjects is with writing. And so we know for a fact that the Egyptians were the first people writing. You could go and they write on everything. They write on everything. And so, and as any civilizations, as they grow, they begin to expand. And so some of the first areas that the Kushite Egyptians went into was Southern Asia, Western Asia, and then, gradually moved going east into India. And matter of fact, they went into India before they even went into Mesopotamia. That's just the facts. You see, India is far more advanced than Mesopotamia. That's just the truth. And from India, they went into, they also went into Mesopotamia, and they probably were very close, going into the both but they went by way of the Persian Gulf, sailing in, and of course they, went into the Indus Valley first, and then going into Sumeria, Elam, today Iran and Iraq, went into that area, and and from that point they went even further east into southern China, into Japan, into the South Pacific, going into them areas, and ultimately even going west. Ultimately going west, where it was a much more as far as taking a chance to come across the ocean, whereas going into Asia, you can almost skirt the coastline. You see, you can almost skirt the coastlines, and you got some form of safety. But then coming across that Atlantic Ocean, you're gonna have to take a chance, because you don't know until you get over there where what's there. So that's a lot of water to just be guessing, and but they did it because being on the Indian Ocean, being on that ocean, gave them all. That was the first learning center of maritime, was being on the Red Sea, going and skirting them oceans, staying to the coastline. That's what they did. They stayed to the coastline, skirted them coastlines, came around, Sumeria, India, and went even further east. But that gave them the time to develop as far as building ships that could stand that ocean. And so the Indian Ocean is the first world. Africa is the first world. The Indian Ocean nations are the second world. That's the second world. And ultimately the Atlantic Ocean is what they call the Western civilized world, is the third world, the third stage of civilization in the world, where they came across the Atlantic. And the oldest, now it's a dispute, where some people say that the oldest some North American sites are even older than the Olmecs, which clearly that could be, because some of the oldest bones have been found over here 16,000 years. So that's clear that they could have older I won't say structures, but they had mounds and things of that nature. And so, that's what they say. They say that they are older than the Olmec. But clearly, the Olmecs brought a level of civilization that has only been seen, when the Olmec came. Only so when you start talking about the writing, the oldest writing in the Western world is the Olmec writing. Okay, and if everybody know the Olmecs, we talking about these brothers. These brothers, let me get their heads. This ain't even the one I want to be on. This is actually the other one. This is actually the other one. But anyway, I could still go to work. I'm gonna still go to work. Now, what's crazy is a lot of people don't show how advanced the Egyptian Navy was. And I'm just not saying Navy, but they maritime ships. The various ships that they had developed. Man, they had literally tens of. And when I say tens, like 20, 30, 40 different type of ships. So they had developed, just like, you got a Navy today, and they got all different types of ships for different reasons, for different purposes. And so, I mean, you had the one guy, white boy, his name was Thor Heyerdahl. And what he did, he tried to prove that the Egyptians could come across the Atlantic Ocean. And it's called the Ra Expedition. You could get the book. And he was this kind of guy where he was doing things of that nature. I think he was from Sweden or something. And he also did one from Peru to the Easter Islands, because there's evidence that, the civilization of Peru, which is also a part of the Olmec, came across the Pacific to the Eastern Islands, because there's megalithic structures so exactly alike that it's not. I mean, if you see a skyscraper in Shanghai, you see a skyscraper in Chicago, you know that the technology to build something as complex as that is the same. It's the same technology. You could twist it and tweak it, but it's the same technology. Okay, so they saw some evidence that, Peru and Easter Island had, a serious link. And that would bring the Olmecs in, that they were also, which we already have said, and many scholars have already said, that it was a global Kushite empire, and we don't even have to continue to go through this. This is not something that just been said. This has been said by scholars all the way into the 1800s, 1700s, as far as that goes. And so, you have all these ships. Matter of fact, let me see if I got. Let me see if I got the one with Thor Heyerdahl on there. I might have to click into my other one. Yeah, I might have to click into my other one. But anyway, these are just small. These are smaller ships. But anyway, Thor Heyerdahl had built a decent sized Egyptian boat. He had built a decent sized Egyptian boat. And it was not even the largest one. And he tried to sell it from Morocco to the Americas. Now, the first expedition, it made it almost 4/5 of the way. Probably a little bit more than 4/5 of the way. You see, 4.5/5 of the way, and it was falling apart. Okay, it fell apart, and it almost got to Barbados. It was some hundreds of miles, maybe 200-300 miles outside of Barbados, but technically he had come across the water. Okay, and so what they did is they came back the very next year. They rebuilt the ship. And they made it to Barbados from Morocco on an ancient Egyptian boat. Okay, proving that, and like I said, this wasn't even the largest Egyptian ship. You see, this wasn't even the largest Egyptian ship, because they won't even talk about the fact. Wait a minute, where is that one at? Is it up here? This one right here, that this was a damn barge. This wasn't no damn ship. It was a barge. This barge could hold 2 700-ton obelisks. Okay, it could hold 2 700-ton obelisks. So this was a barge for real. And so it was far more sturdier than anything. And it looked like it had 3 levels on it, because you could see the damn windows on it. So you had 3 levels on this ship up under. So there was things that they had up under the ship too. So they probably had animals and everything else up under the ship. So this is very profound that they had a boat. So Most definitely, this one could have came across the water easily. Now, it still would have been treacherous, no doubt, but you know, that's what science is for. You had to keep advancing. And so they knew that there were what they call streams out there in that ocean, that if they could get in them streams, it'll bring them across far quicker. You see, it'll bring them all far quicker than just out there floating, because they might end up getting in the wrong stream and take their ass. So it lets you know that they have been out there for a very long time to have mastered them streams in the ocean. You see, you got a lot of different streams out there. There's hundreds of streams, depending on where you're going, that you can get in these streams, and it take you to the particular area that you want to go to. Now, let me get in my right lecture. Let me get in my right lecture. Now, what's crazy is what they find in Peru, Egypt, Ethiopia, is the tapered Kushite Egyptian doorway. Okay, this is really amazing. And not only that, so much of the other architecture, like where you talking about, you talking about stones that weigh 100 tons. Let's just be real. Some of them weigh 100 tons, 200 tons. And not only do they weigh 300 tons, they carve them in these geometric forms, zigzags, and you know what I'm saying, and fit these damn stones into these in crazy positions, creating these crazy designs. And the only place where you could see that type of architecture is in Egypt. Okay, the thing would put Egypt above. They did it for 3,000 years consistently. No other civilization even comes close to this. You can go into somebody, they might got a wall here. They might got a stone here. Nowhere in the world where you could go and find megalithic structures built with stone, which takes masons. You have to have the square, you had to have the plumb line, you had to have the chisel, you had to have the rulers. You see, you had to have the paper, you had to have the blueprint, because they show you the blueprint. So the same today, where you see the architects, they had the scroll, and they come out there to the site where they build, and then they unroll the scroll and show you the blueprint, and you go to ancient Egypt and you see the scroll. It's the exact science, still from ancient time. Nothing has surpassed that. So you see this doorway is the tapered Egyptian doorway found in Peru. And like I said, that's just one thing. It's over 100 different similarities, over 100 different, and we're talking about advanced subjects. We're not talking about no little small, like, where they got the same type of fish hook or some shit like that. No, we're talking about advanced science that would have taken thousands and thousands of years of development to get to that point. The only way that just like skyscrapers, the only way you're going to build a skyscraper is to go to school in one of these advanced schools to get there. There's no way you're going to learn how to build no goddamn skyscraper unless you go to an advanced school to get that knowledge. And it's the same as it was in the ancient world, that the Egyptians had come and the science had developed, and schools had developed all over the world. All over the world, just like today, where you got, and people don't understand, just like you can have a college and they can have satellite campuses all over the world right now. It could be the University of Michigan have a satellite campus in Indonesia, have a satellite campus in Australia, where you could go to that satellite campus and get a degree from the University of Michigan right where you at. Okay, right where you at. So, you know, this type of system was first established in ancient Egypt, and many of the Africans were already in the Americas. They were the ones that established the first great civilizations, which all these others, Johnny come lately, come into the sites and take them over. They are not the originators of the sites. They took the sites were already there and they took them over. But I appreciate y'all for being here, family. We're just getting started. We're just getting warmed up. So most definitely, family, stay with me. Sarah Student City membership exclusive. This, that work. We're not giving this on the regular YouTube. Just not going to give it like that. You got to be with the exclusive team. Thank you, family. Appreciate your support. See you soon. Arm yourself with knowledge. Bang on that wicked ass beast daily. Liberation through African education and confrontation. Boom. Black power.